Hello, and welcome to Adapt Productions of Chicago. I'm Joel Margolis, your host for today, and I'd like to ask those of you in the audience, have you ever known a disabled child attending a charter school? Can a disabled child attend just any charter school? What happens if a disabled child runs into problems at a charter school? Charter schools are very much part of the landscape, and those are some of the questions we'll be exploring today with my guest, Charlie Wysong, who is a member of the bar in the state of Illinois, I believe?
Yes, I am.
And works for Equip for Equality. Okay, and for those of you who want more information, I believe you can find them at www.equipforequality.org, spelled as one word, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Charlie, before we go into our questions about charter schools and disabled children, could you tell us at least a little bit here and now about Equip for Equality and its basic mandate?
Sure, Joel. So Equip for Equality has been around for 30 years. We are the protection and advocacy agency for the state of Illinois. What that means is we're a nonprofit organization that advocates for the rights of people with disabilities, both children and adults, all across the state. And we have three basic groups. We do a lot of work in investigations of people in institutions through our abuse and investigation unit. We have a group called the Civil Rights Team that works on employment discrimination and on helping people move out of facilities and into the community integration advocacy. And then we also have a special education clinic, which assists parents and students in school to resolve issues, which is the group I work with.
Okay, and it's that third one that brings me to ask more about your work for Equip for Equality, which I understand is on the issues related to disabled children in charter schools. Now, we may have some members of the audience who are not really familiar with what a charter school is. If that's the case, could you tell us just a little bit about what a charter school really is and what it isn't?
So a charter school is a publicly funded but privately operated school. So it's a school that's usually run by a nonprofit organization, and they get permission to open by applying to the local school district or the state for a charter, which is a contract basically that says you may open a school, and they get paid by the number of students that attend there. And the key is that a charter school is a public school in the sense that anyone can go there. They're open enrollment schools, not like selective schools. So if there are more students that want to go there, then they have seats available. They do admissions by lottery. So they're schools that are sprouting up all across the state that are supposed to be offering something new or different to our education system that should be open to everyone.
Do we have charter schools in every state in the union now?
Almost. We've got charter schools in 43 states and the District of Columbia. So they're spreading rapidly, most recently to Alabama and Washington. And they've been here in Illinois for almost 20 years now.
And what is the basic philosophy that drives the introduction of charter schools? Why were they brought into being?
I think the origin of charter schools from the 90s really was to allow the opportunity for innovation and experimentation. So it came actually out of Minnesota with the idea that if you had a school that had to follow less regulations and got more freedom to design the way it was run, they could do new and different things in education, to develop new ways of teaching and to serve students better, and then we could all learn from that. Since then, there's also been some who see charter schools as a source of competition or a way to encourage the whole school system to improve. And so that's the theory behind charter schools.
Behind the charter schools. Now, you mentioned a moment ago that charter schools are chartered by a school district, okay? So in Chicago, that would be the Chicago Public Schools issue the charter. And then in the suburbs of Chicago, does each suburban municipality issue charters, or isn't it that simple?
So of the roughly 130 charter schools in the state of Illinois, almost all of them are chartered by their local school district. So in Chicago, it's the Board of Ed for Chicago. In Waukegan, it would be the Waukegan School District. In Peoria, the Peoria School District. There's a small exception. There are 5 charter schools across the state that are chartered by the state charter commission, which is a group down in Springfield that can also approve schools.
Okay, and in the case where several suburbs are all part of one school district, such as, for instance, New Trier Township or Morton Township or, Niles Township, it's then that township school district that issues the charter.
That's right. They come in through the school board, not the city.
Now, I heard you say that a charter school, in theory, is open to all students in the district?
That's correct. So the state law says that charter schools cannot discriminate on the basis of language or income or disability or race or academic ability even. So they need to be open to any student who resides within the district.
Now, does that mean that a charter school is obliged to take disabled children as well?
Certainly, if a student with a disability, a student has an IEP or a 504 plan, applies to a charter school and gets in through the lottery, if they're picked at random, they have a right to go to that school because these schools are open to everyone.
And most schools select people by lottery?
Yes, most schools. A few of them have seats for everybody who wants to go, so you can just, if you want to go, you can come, and if there are too many students for the seats, they run a lottery, typically in the spring.
Now, I heard you mention the acronym IEP. What is that, and how does it relate to charter schools?
So an IEP is an individualized education program. It's a document that describes the special education services a student with a disability will receive. And that's something set up by federal law. And so that's the same in all district-run schools, in all charter schools, in all states. Everyone has an IEP. If you have a disability in a special education services, those services are described in that document, the IEP.
All right. Now, suppose, for instance, I am the parent, or if to speak in the plural, I'm two parents of a disabled child, and I see a charter school in an adjacent or a nearby school district outside my own, which I think would be better for my child because he or she is disabled. Can I apply to that charter school outside of the district where I live?
Generally, you cannot. So charter schools are still linked to the district where they're approved or authorized to be. So for a parent looking for education options, you want to think first about the options within your school district and then any other charter schools or special programs within the district. So for parents living in Chicago, for example, they would want to look at their neighborhood school or magnet schools or other schools run by the Chicago Board of Education or charter schools anywhere in the city. And they are open enrollment. So with one exception, a parent living anywhere in Chicago could apply to any charter school in the city as well.
I understand. Now, are there any cases in which a charter school can say to a parent, your child is not only disabled, their disability is so specialized and so extreme that it simply is impossible for us to accommodate your child in our school? Can they say that in some cases?
That could happen in very, very rare circumstances that I've only seen once or twice. And what you're really asking about is a student that has extremely intensive and specialized supports and needs. And for that student, what should happen is the parents and the student should still be allowed to apply to the charter school and go through the lottery process. And then once the student is admitted, if this charter school doesn't think they can meet that child's needs, there should be a meeting with the IEP team, with the school staff, and with the parent. The parent should be able to participate in the discussion about whether the specific supports that student needs can be provided at the charter school. And 99 times out of 100, they should be able to be supported at a charter school. And if not, then that's something that the parent and student and school should talk about together.
So in effect, the charter school can say no to a disabled child only in some very, very infrequent circumstances.
That's right. And any student who's told they can't be served in a charter school, they should really make sure that and know that they have the right to participate in that decision and to have a meeting with the school staff and with the parent to discuss that choice before the student decides to go somewhere else.
All right. I think we've already now scoped out what charter schools are and the fact that disabled children should, with rare exceptions, be able to attend any charter school. But let's say my child is in a charter school, my child does have a disability, and I feel, for instance, that my child is either not receiving education equal to that of other students in the classroom, or the teacher is insensitive to my child's needs, or the like, okay, what can I do about it?
So parents with concerns about sort of their students' education have a whole range of options, and this is what we often talk through with parents who contact us. We run a free helpline for parents, really available anywhere in the state, where we talk about their situation and give them suggestions and advice about what to do. So for a parent who has concerns about what's going on in the classroom, I think the first thing to do always is to make sure you have all the information. So do you know what has happened? Do you have all your child's records? Do you have any emails or documents about what's going on? And then to try to figure out who you can talk to about trying to solve that problem.
Okay. So if a parent comes to Equip for Equality, either through internet, telephone, letter, or whatever, one of your first responses is going to be to say to them, do you have all the paperwork that documents what's happened?
Generally, yes. So certainly we can talk to parents, even if they don't have the paperwork with them, and give them some suggestions about how to raise a concern with the principal, or how to write a letter about bullying, for example, or some steps they can take. And we can certainly help parents get those documents as well, but often the first step when a parent contacts us or is looking for assistance is to make sure you have your child's IEP, make sure you have their evaluations, and the important paperwork from the school.
In effect, saying to the parents, we can help you know your rights. That's part of the mission?
Absolutely. We spend a lot of time doing trainings for parents. We do trainings for social workers and therapists and physicians and probation officers and lots of people who work with students. We even do trainings for students themselves. And a lot of that outreach is just talking to parents and students and saying, you have rights. You have the right to learn, and you have the right to be included with your peers as much as possible. And this is how you can advocate for yourself to make sure you're getting what you need at school.
And people who have questions about these training programs to know your rights can find at least some of the answers on your website, and the website will in turn tell them whom to contact for more information?
Certainly. Our outreach to parents, the first point of contact is our helpline, intake line, and also on the website we have a lot of fact sheets and explanations and written materials. We even have some interactive video trainings for parents so they can learn more about what should happen for their student, particularly if they're getting ready to leave high school, preparing for transition, and also for students that have a discipline situation, so students who are being suspended or expelled, and how to really deal with that problem at school.
Now, when a parent comes to you and says, my child is disabled and is having problems in the charter school they're attending, in addition to counseling them about their rights and helping them to assemble what we might call a document file, perhaps, or something to that effect, what would be your next step to actually helping to resolve the problem? Do you talk to the school staff? Do you go to the state superintendent of education? What do you do as a first step, you at Equip for Equality?
So the next thing we would usually do is try to figure out who the parent can talk to solve their problem. So I spend a lot of time working with parents to craft letters and emails to a principal maybe, or a case manager or a special education supervisor to explain what is going on with their student and what they need because of their disability. So for example, I had a young woman last spring who was not going to be allowed to graduate because she'd missed too many days of school. And their school, it was a charter school, had a policy. If you miss too many days of school, then you don't get to walk in graduation and graduate with your peers. And this was a real problem for her because she was admitted to college, she was ready to go in the fall, and she'd done all her classes and passed all her classes.
She needed to graduate.
Absolutely, she needed to graduate. And she came in and she had her paperwork, and this young woman had a medical condition that caused her to go to the doctor frequently. And the school, so she had missed school for a lot of medical appointments. And that is sort of a disability-related reason why she missed school. And so under the law, the school can't discriminate against her for having a disability, and they need to make an exception, or what we would call an accommodation, for that situation. So in talking to this young woman and looking at her paperwork, we said, if you can get together all of your paperwork and show that you were at the doctor, and put together an email or with her generation, she was actually texting with the principal, believe it or not. I walked with her and her mother to explain the situation to the principal and to say, look, this is why I missed school. It's because I have this condition and I was at the doctor's office and I need an exception to the rule about graduation. And we were so thrilled that with working with her, we were able to help her explain that and actually to speak up for herself to the school and the principal, and they did make an exception and let her walk in the graduation
And she
ceremony.
did graduate in the fullest sense.
She did.
Okay. Now, I noticed you said speak to the principal. When parents come to you, and I assume it's usually the parents who come to you, especially with young children, and you counsel them on their rights, you facilitate their assembling a paper trail, if I might call it that, then you say you go and talk to someone at the school, if I hear you correctly. Now, in this case, you mentioned talking to the principal. Is it always the principal you talk to, or isn't it that simple?
You know, it's not always the principal. A lot of parents come to us and have frustration because they've been dealing with the principal for a number of years, or the case manager, and they're really not having their voice heard. And so part of what we do, because we do this all day, every day with students all across the state, is help the parents find someone who might be a little more objective to listen to them. So I might say to the parent, you know, why don't you send an email to this supervisor at the district level who's responsible for special education? Or maybe talk to the social worker about this discipline situation and what was going on with your student on the day, you know, that something happened. And so helping them tell their story and really explain what's going on and ask for help to the right person is a lot of what we do. Certainly, there are many situations where we do get involved, but a lot of things can be resolved by teaching students and parents, you know, how to speak up for what they need because of their disability.
Now, I noticed you gave me several examples there in addition to the principal. Sometimes it's someone in the district office, sometimes it's a social worker, sometimes it's someone else in administration. If I hear you correctly, are you saying that to whom the parents need to talk and to whom you might need to speak to as an attorney helping to advocate, whom needs to be addressed does vary from school to school and district to district?
It does a little bit because every district is set up differently, and in the charter school setting, for example, you might be able to contact the building principal, or you might be able to contact one of the charter management administrators, or you might be able to contact someone at the CPS, or the Chicago Public Schools Central Office, to sort of help troubleshoot what's going on. And that could be a student who, you know, has been failing reading for years on end, and the parents can't get an evaluation to get the IEP. And for that, you would, you know, talk to the parent about helping write a letter. You know, explain what you've done, explain what has happened, explain why your student needs help, and then put that in as a request, for example, for an evaluation. We can help direct parents to how to explain themselves in a way that will get the school to listen, and also who to talk to fix the problem as quickly as possible.
So then the old formula that many of us know from standard public schools of first talk to the teacher, if that doesn't work, you simply have to talk to the principal, that's not always the solution to the problem. It sometimes lies in talking to someone else in the overall school situation.
It does, and we certainly encourage parents to talk to their teachers and principals. Many things can be fixed that way, but often by the time parents contact us, they've tried talking to their teacher and their principal, and they're looking for direction on where to go next.
Where to go next, okay. Now, if the parents have already talked to both the teacher and the principal, and you at Equip for Equality then take it one step further and, for instance, speak to someone in a supervisory capacity at the school district, since I assume every school district must have someone identified as being the person responsible for charter schools, or the person who is the contact person on charter school issues, someone like that?
They do. Every district has someone in charge of special education, which would cover charter schools and traditional schools.
Now, if you have already gone to the teacher, the principal, and someone at the school district office, okay, and you're still not achieving satisfactory results, is there anything else you can do, or have you already reached the end of the line?
You know, after parents have sort of tried to informally resolve what is concerning them about their child's education, the next step we often talk about is requesting an IEP meeting, or which is a meeting with the teacher and the special education staff and the social worker and everybody all together. And this is a process set up under federal special education law, where a parent can sit down with the school and formally discuss their concerns and request assistance. And it's not that you have to go through every step in order. It's just often if you have a problem, you can try to fix it as quickly as possible. Certainly if you have a crisis, like a student who's referred for expulsion or a student who's unsafe, you may need to jump to having a meeting, or we may jump in right away to make sure students are safe. But this is typically the progression we go through with parents.
And I noticed you used the phrase IEP meeting, and you made reference to federal law. Does federal law actually require that in cases of charter schools, there must be the option of an IEP meeting?
Absolutely. Federal special education law applies to charter schools. All the charter schools have to follow essentially the same state and federal rules around special education. They have to follow the Americans with Disabilities Act. They have to have accessible buildings. They have to provide interpreters. They have to provide pretty much anything that a traditional school would, or your neighborhood school would, which is why we're trying to make sure everybody knows and every parent knows that if they want to choose a charter school, it's certainly open to them.
Now, if you've gone through talking to the teacher, talking to the principal, talking to someone in the school district office, you've had the formal IEP meeting, and the child, in the parent's opinion, is still not receiving the proper educational service, have the parents now reached the end of the line, or are there outlets such as formal mediation or even litigation that are available?
At that point, the parents definitely have options, and we spend a lot of time talking with parents about how to access these options. They can make a complaint to the State Board of Education, for example, which is basically a letter saying that what has happened to my student is not okay, and asking them to fix it, and that the law has been violated. Parents can also ask for mediation, which is where they sit down with a school district official and an independent person and the parent, sometimes with attorneys, sometimes without attorneys, and try to come up with an agreement or a solution that'll work for both of them. And if not, then parents can also file what's called due process, which is basically the beginning of a lawsuit, or is really like the first step of a lawsuit to resolve what needs to happen with a student's education.
Before they actually go to a lawsuit, you say they can write the State Superintendent of Education?
They can write a complaint to the Illinois State Board of Education.
Illinois State Board of Education.
Their special education. And you can find information about all of that on our website, on the State Board website.
At the Equip for Equality website.
Exactly.
Okay. And you say there's also the possibility of mediation. Is the mediation something vaguely similar to arbitration in a labor dispute?
Mediation is a little different than labor arbitration. Labor arbitration is a little more like a judge who will decide what happens, even though it's not in court. In mediation, it's not, the mediator doesn't decide what will happen to the student. The mediator is an independent person there who is trying to help the school and parent come up with a solution that will work for both of them. So mediation will never force you to do anything, but it can help facilitate a conversation where you can hopefully come to an agreement without having to go to a lawsuit about what will happen to the student, whether they'll get more special education or more time with their peers or occupational therapy services or whatever it is they need.
All right. Now, I noticed you mentioned earlier the case of a student who was having problems participating in full graduation. You spoke to the principal, okay, and there's also the option of going to the local school district officials, eventually writing the state. Have you personally been involved in cases of mediation? Okay.
I have. We have gone through mediation. I've had a high school student, for example, who the school thought they didn't need an IEP anymore, didn't need special education services, and the family and parents and the student themselves were all very concerned about that. So we requested mediation and got the school to sit down and really look again at what the student's learning needs were and what sort of emotional supports he needed. And we're able to come up with an agreement where the student could keep their special education services. and
the
get what they
student
needed
actually
and to
did
stay.
receive
They
what
received. Yep, they received.
So the mediation was successful.
It was, and that was a student in a charter school who was able to stay there. Where, what I've really been focusing on the last couple of years is trying to make sure that student parents know they can choose a charter school, and that when they're there, that they can get the supports and services they need to succeed.
I understand. And there is, even if mediation fails, the option of litigation. Have you actually litigated cases on behalf of a disabled child in a charter school?
I have. We've had a couple of situations where we weren't able to work out an agreement ahead of time. There was a young man who had very intense reading needs, for example. He was in middle school and still had only learned to basically sound out one-syllable words. And so we did actually have to request due process in that case, and were able to work out a situation. I mean, due process is the way you resolve a logjam where students and parents really, really don't agree about what should happen next. It takes a lot of time, but it can really help get students what they need.
And in this actually, it's not hypothetical, it was a real case. Were you successful in getting further services for the student?
Absolutely. We got a student into a very specialized reading program that has helped him learn not only how to read, but also learn how to enjoy school again. He'd had a lot of anxiety around not being able to read and not being successful in school. And so now with the right supports, he's much more excited about going to school and is successful and enjoys being there.
Now, everything you've told us is a rich mosaic of information about children in charter schools. However, it's my understanding that, disabled or not, no parent is guaranteed that a charter school will continue indefinitely. Okay, charter schools can close. Am I correct?
That's correct. We've had a few of them close here in Chicago.
Okay, and is that always a voluntary closure, or does sometimes the local school district actually revoke a charter?
So the way charter schools are set up is they're approved to operate for a certain number of years, typically 3 or 5, and after that they're reviewed to see whether they've been successful. So there have been a few cases in Chicago where the school board has determined essentially that the schools were not being very successful and came up with a plan to phase the schools out and actually shut them down. Across the country, we see other schools shut for financial reasons or other sort of improprieties.
Now, rather than leaving a student out in the cold at the last minute, is a charter school that's going to be shut down required to notify students and parents a certain length of time in advance?
So there's no formal rules around notice for parents. I mean, I think it's a public process, and parents should certainly know a couple months in advance before a school is going to close. And I think what's important for parents to remember, particularly if a student has a disability and an IEP, they have a right to be in school, and so they can go back to their district or they can look at other charter schools. They will have to find another school, but they can definitely should be allowed to enroll so their child is able to learn.
So there's a wealth of information to know about disabled children in charter schools. It sounds like you at Equip for Equality have that information, and parents or students who want more information can visit your website, www.equipforequality.org. I've got that correct, okay?
That's right, or they're welcome to give us a call at 866-543-7046, and we're very happy. We help all parents, everybody gets some assistance, and all of our services are free.
And are your offices in a central location for those who need to come in?
Yes, our offices are right downtown in the Loop in Chicago, and then we have satellite offices around the state.
Well, I want to thank you for covering the landscape of charter schools so effectively, and I wish you all the good luck in the world in continuing your program.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you all for joining us today at Adapt Productions of Chicago. Thanks to Charlie Wysong for coming in, and please come back and visit us again on CAN TV, your public access station at Adapt Productions of Chicago. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.